Hi, Assalamualaikum. We are from BA1183K from class BA1183K. My name is Nisa Ofa.
My name is Farah.
And my name is Siti Ajwa.
This video is about causes and impact of inflation in New Zealand. Let's go!
1. Country's background. New Zealand is the largest country in Polynesia, and New Zealand is land of great contrast and diversity. In New Zealand, they have active volcanoes, spectacular cave, deep glacier, lake, verdant valley and desert fjord. This makes New Zealand become the large and habitable place in the world. The original name of New Zealand is Aotearoa, which means land of the long white cloud. This name used by Maori people who discovered New Zealand between 1200 and 1300 AD. Maori people found New Zealand after they explored the Pacific. First European who discovered New Zealand is Abel Tasman, Dutch explorer in 1642. The word Zeeland in New Zealand comes from the word Zeeland, which means sea land in Dutch. After a century, New Zealand visited by another European, Captain James Cook. Starting from that European, sailors start to visit it and then become a trader. In 1830s, British government have some conflict with French who were considering New Zealand as the potential colony. On 6 February 1840, William Hobson, as the first New Zealand governor, invited Maori chief to sign an agreement with British Crown. In the agreement, state all land around the country are taken. This agreement known as Treaty of Waitangi. New Zealand is country use parliamentary democracy and a constitutional monarchy who have 4.794 million population. The Queen Elizabeth II, became head of New Zealand, head of state. New Zealand becomes sovereign country. Jacinda Ardern is their prime minister since 2017. In New Zealand, they have two types of government, which are central government and local government. New Zealand will choose their new government every 3 years. Capital of New Zealand is Wellington on North Island since 1865. This capital of New Zealand country also known as culinary capital because of their famous takeaway bars, award-winning restaurant and great coffee. This country use flag who have some similarity with British flag, but the difference of these two flags are the star color. New Zealand choose Southern Cross constellation to put at their flag as a symbolic of affectionate and respectable when they are with foreigner.
Country's economy background. New Zealand's economy is growing, but on the global marketplace, it is relatively small. New Zealand's living standards, based on the export of agricultural products, were among the highest in the world in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. But after the mid-20th centuries, the growth rate tended to be one of the slowest among developed countries. Impediments to economic expansion have been the slow growth of the United Kingdom's economy, which was one New Zealand's main destination for export, and its subsequent membership in the European Community, and the high tariff levied by major industrial nations on agricultural products such as butter and meat in the region. Since the mid-20th century, New Zealand's economic history has largely consisted of attempts to grow and diversify its economy by finding new markets and new products such as wine and paper products, expanding its manufacturing base and entering into or supporting free trade agreements. New Zealand has a long history of government intervention in the economy, ranging from banking and insurance rivalry from state institutions to a robust system of social security. Many governments endorsed and promoted these policies until the early 1980s. But since then, government policy has gradually shifted away from interference, though maintaining the basic elements of social security. Many subsidies and tax incentives have been eliminated for agricultural and manufacturing exporters, and government companies like the post office have become more economically focused and less dependent on government subsidies. Furthermore, by reforming labor laws and promoting globalization, governments have tried to increase labor market mobility such as agriculture, forestry, and fishing.
There is a Consumer Price Index (CPI) annual change from 2016 to 2018 quarterly in New Zealand. Overall, in 2016, inflation rate is 0.6% and the change of this year is 107.47%. As we can see, from March 2016 to September 2016, CPI percent are at the same level, or we call it as neutral. However, inflation is rise up into 1.3 in December 2016. The average price in 1 litre of 91 petrol rose up in December 2016 was $1.82, while in the September 2016 was $1.75. Next, inflation rate in 2017 is 1.9%, and the changes of this year is 190.14%. From June 2017 to September 2017, CPI percent are up and down. This CPI rose 0.5% and this will up 0.3 with seasonal adjustment. In this range of time, food prices up to 1.1%, houses and housing utilities also increased to 1.0%, while in services such as transportation also decreased 1.1%. The average price in 1 litre of 91 petrol for this quarter is decreased. In September 2017, the average price of 1 litre petrol was $1.86 and $1.83 in June 2017. In 2018, inflation rate to New Zealand was 1.6% and the changes of this year is negative 13.92%. The CPI from December 2018 compared to September 2018 will increase 0.1% and will up 0.4% with seasonal adjustment. This range time make price of food decrease to 1.3%, while recreation and culture increase 2.5% and transport also increase 1.1%. The average price of petrol in this year was $2.17, decreased to $2.18 in September 2018, but increased from $1.95 in December 2017.
Causes of inflation. Number 1. Rising wage. The New Zealand government raised the minimum wage by $1.20 to $17.70 on 1 April 2019. This minimum wage increase coincides with the high annual increases for the younger age group, which have a proportionately higher amount of minimum wage earner. Rising wages are a key cause of inflation because wages are the most significant cost for many firms. Higher wages may also contribute in rising demands. Number 2, oil prices increases. There have been regular increases in the National Land Transport Fund petrol excise petrol tax, totaling 17 cents per litre between October 2009 and July 2015. The government has also announced further increases to excise of 3.5 cents per litre each year from 2018 to July 2020. This will have a significant impact on most goods in the economy, and this will lead to cost push inflation on New Zealand. Number 3, house prices increases. Median house prices across New Zealand increased by 8.2% in October to a new record high of $607,500, up from $561,500 in October 2018. Rising house prices do not directly cause inflation, but they can cause a positive wealth effect and encourage customer-led economic growth. This can indirectly cause demand pull inflation. Number 4. Increasing tax for the country. A major change in New Zealand taxation policy, as until this point almost all revenue had been raised via direct taxes. GST makes up 24% of the New Zealand government's core revenue as of 2013. If the government put up taxes such as GST, this will lead to higher prices and therefore CPI will increase. However, the tax rises are likely to be one-off increases. There is even a measure of inflation CPI to CT which ignores the effects of temporary tax rises or decreases. Impacts of inflation. Number 1. A rising unemployment rate. New Zealand unemployment rate rose to 4.2% in the third quarter of 2019 from an 11-year low of 3.9% in the previous period and above market expectation of 4.1%. Unemployment rate in New Zealand averaged 5.98% from 1985 until 2019, reaching an all-time high of 11.2% in the third quarter of 1991 and a record low of 3.3% in the fourth quarter of 2007. As unemployment falls, the theory goes that employers are forced to pay more for workers with the skill they need. As wages rise, so does consumer spending power, leading the economy to heat up and spur inflation. This model is known as cost-push inflation. Number 2. Economic growth slows. New Zealand's economy grew at the slowest pace in more than 5 years in the second quarter, giving the central bank scope to cut interest rate. Gross domestic product rose 2.1% from a year earlier, slowing from 2.5% in the first quarter and the weakest annual growth fourth quarter of 2013. GDP climbed 0.5% from the previous 3-month period. Slowing growth justifies Reserve Bank's decision in August to slash the official cash rate OCR to a record low 1% as a global slowdown and weak business confidence impact inflation and job creation.
Step taken by the government to reduce inflation. Number 1. Increasing the efficiency of their work. This is by raising the output level per hour of work. They will generate higher wage in the short term if they increase the involvement of the labour force of work longer hours. Nevertheless, we already have a higher proportion of our labour force population than almost all other OECD countries, and we work longer hours than most people in the OECD. Number 2. New Zealand Central Bank lower interest rate. Lower interest rate to a fresh record low and signal the possibility of a further downturn in global growth and soft inflation. The Monetary Policy Committee decided a lower OCR is necessary to support the outlook for employment and inflation. Number 3. Enlarged Policy Committee. Other than that, though 14 out of 20 Bloomberg poll economists predicted the move, a fall in market price fell to less than 40% in the hours leading up to the decision. Today's decision was the first to be reached by an enlarged policy committee made up of 4 internal and 3 external members and a non-voting treasurer observer. According to their meeting record, the decision was reached by consensus. The economy of New Zealand has slowed, with annual growth declining from 3.4% in 2017 to 2.3% last year. The short-term outlook is clouded by weak business confidence and heightened concerns about the effect of a trade war between the US and China on global growth. Number 4. Reduce population growth through lower net immigration. Continuing softness in house price in some regions has reduced household spending expansion. Investment has been limited by continuing weak market confidence, smaller profit margins and asset competition. The central bank also increased its inflation projections in the near term, with price rising by 1.6% in 2019 compared to 1.4% in the past.
As a conclusion, inflation can be solved if government did their part, such as controlling inflation through contractionary monetary policy. The goal of contractionary policy is to reduce the money supply within an economy by decreasing bond prices and increasing interest rate. We, as consumers, need to agree to contribute to make a better country.
That's all from us.
Thank you for watching.
Bye!